My name is Gloria Lutz. I'm 30, and my entire world is lines of code on a flickering screen. Stubborn logic that breaks down precisely where it should. The call came on Tuesday afternoon, halfway through a review. The cursor, that damned blinking beacon, hovering over the pull request that stubbornly, in defiance of all the laws of the universe, broke the tests. And then my phone shuddered on the table, silenced, but no less insistent. Ashley again. Third day in a row. Third time this morning. I pretended not to see that pulsing name, my gaze fixed on the error line, telling myself that this was professionalism, that icy, focused restraint, when in reality I was simply conserving oxygen, afraid that if I took a breath, I'd break down. On the fifth vibration, I stood up and walked out into the hallway, past the glass walls where the teams, so rested and calm, sipped their lattes, while the horizon beyond the huge window shone like a cheap postcard, a bright blue sky, merciless in its clarity, and the teeth of the city's high-rises caught and mindlessly reflected the sunlight. I called back. She answered halfway through the ring, as if she'd been waiting, lurking by the receiver. "Finally," I hissed, and my word hung in the air of the empty hallway. "What's going on, Ash? I need to talk. It's important." And then, talk. There was a breath I knew all too well on the other end of the line, ragged, building a story out of smoke and silence. "Could we meet for coffee tonight?" "Ashley, please," I forced out, and the silence hung between us, thick and sticky. "Then I'll be in trouble. Financial ones." Another breath, theatrical and deep. "Yes. How much?" "I don't want—" "How much, Ashley?" 15,000. The sound in the hallway, the distant hum of printers, the laughter from the conference room, disappeared as if someone had pulled the plug on reality itself. I closed my eyes. Credit cards. Yeah. Her voice became a quiet, guilty twitter. It just added up. "Debt doesn't accumulate by accident," I said, and she bristled instantly. "Don't make me feel worse." "I'm not making you feel anything. I'm asking what you bought." "Does it matter?" "Yes. Clothes, a little furniture, lunches, normal things. Normal." The words swirled on my tongue, bitter, like a challenge. Ashley's social media feed was an endless collage of champagne glasses, sunsets in foreign countries, and videos of unpacking bags whose patterns I recognized from the first frame. She works part-time in retail. Her lease only exists because my signature is next to her trembling name. "You can't even afford the minimum on these cards," I whispered. "They're killing me. I'm drowning." Glow. How I hated it when she called me that nickname. Glowing, like it was a lever she could pull to gain access to my life. "What do you want?" "Salvation. Just this once. I'll pay you back." There it is. The real question, dressed up in someone else's dress, called family. "No." Pause. "What?" "No, I won't pay your credit card debt." "But I am your sister." "That's why I co-signed your apartment and your car, and I've helped you out 3 times already. This isn't an emergency, Ash. It's a pattern." "I can't believe you're acting like this." "How?" coldly. "Responsible," I said, and the word, heavy and sharp, cut us both. "Mom said you'd help." "Mom can't spend my money." "So you'll just watch me struggle?" That line, that eternal attempt to turn my refusal into cruelty. "I'll watch you learn, Ash. There's a difference. You're so—" She cut herself off before the sentence that escaped her lips could decide whether it wanted to be an insult or a plea. I stood there, holding the phone, which was gradually cooling in my palm, and I knew in my bones that this wasn't the end. This never happens. Returning to the table, I unpaused the world and immersed myself in the cold, clear logic of code, where every error had an explanation and a solution. After work, I was making dinner, and a text from my mother was waiting for me like a tripwire on a dark path. "Ashley says you said no. Call me. We need to talk." I didn't call. I washed the dishes, answered late-arriving emails, and packed away in the quiet of my kitchen, where only the running water and the scraping of dishes broke the silence. And the next morning, the parade began. 8 o'clock, a call from Mom. Voicemail, a strained voice. 8:15, another voicemail, this time higher pitched. 8:30, a third. By 8:45, Dad's number had joined this march of hostility, silent and therefore an even more compelling reproach. At lunch, my manager appeared at the door of my office, a small, businesslike smile on his face. Got a minute? Of course. The corporation is opening a new office in Seattle. They need someone with more experience to help with the setup. A team leader, big opportunities, a real path to the top. Interested? Seattle. 3,000 miles. 3,000 miles of air, space, silence between me and all the obligations I never agreed to. They need someone by next month. A relocation package, a significant raise. I thought for exactly 3 seconds, feeling something click inside, like a long-awaited lock engaging. Yes, I'm interested. Great, I'll schedule an interview for tomorrow. That evening, I crunched the numbers. Cost of living, neighborhoods, distances. On the map, it looked like freedom, a point just out of reach. When I turned off Do Not Disturb, my phone choked with 43 notifications. I flipped through them without reading, deleting one after another. And then Mom called, and for reasons I didn't even understand, I answered. "So me?" she snapped, her first word. "We'd been trying to reach you all day." I was working. Your sister is in crisis, and you're working. Ashley made a choice. She wants me to pay for it. She's drowning in debt. She created what she's drowning in, buying things she couldn't afford. It's not drowning, Mom. It's the consequences. You're her sister, and she needs help. She needs 15 grand? Fine. Let her sell her handbags, cancel her subscriptions, stop eating out, and figure it out. We don't have that kind of money. Neither do I. You work in tech. You make good money. There it is. The quiet, unspoken family constitution. My income is their emergency fund. I earn a good living because I work hard, and that doesn't make my money community property. And you're going to let her suffer? I'll let her manage her life the way I've managed mine since I was 18. That's different, Mom said, her voice wintry, creaking like ice underfoot. You never needed help. I needed a lot of help. I just didn't ask. Then the silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Is that your final answer? Yes. Great. Then don't be surprised if this family moves on without you. She hung up, and the ceiling in my apartment suddenly opened up, became higher, and I realized I could breathe deeply, freely. The interview the next day was as clear and precise as a mathematical formula. They offered the position by 3 o'clock. I accepted at 3:01. I submitted my resignation. I started a list. Cancel utilities, change addresses, kill automatic payments. I didn't tell my family. It was quiet for a week. Too quiet. The air before another storm. On the 8th day, Ashley called from an unknown number. What? I answered, because I had run out of furniture to arrange around this conversation. No barriers left. They'll send the debt to collection agencies and then make payments. I can't. Then sell your things. Get a second job. Do what adults do. You've changed. No, I've stopped encouraging you. I'll lose everything. And then you'll rebuild it. I'll watch you do it. And there it goes again, the myth that I'm doing something to her, simply refusing to fix what she's done. I've helped you many times, Ash. Each time was the last. Now it's over. This is different. It's always different. And it's always my money. Silence. And then she said, in a small, stunned voice, "What are you planning to do?" "I'm moving to Seattle in 3 weeks." "You run away." "I choose myself." Mom will be upset. She can handle disappointment. I've learned. "Please, I beg you, just this once." "No, Ashley. I'm your sister, not your ATM." I hang up. I block her number. Then I block Mom's number, then Dad's. Not out of rage, no, but to create an island of silence around myself, big enough to start a new life within. 2 hours later, my inbox chimed ominously. Subject: Final warning. The text was simple and merciless. If you don't help your sister with this debt, you will lose this family. $15,000 or it's over. You have 24 hours to decide. I reread it twice, my father's letter, and it doesn't hurt. It's a bitter, pure release. And then I commit an act of quiet rebellion that feels sacred, like the most honest thing I've done in the last 10 years. I log into my bank account through the app, and my fingers don't tremble when I find the Automatic Transfers tab. There it is, like a scar from an old addiction, my mother's monthly transfer. $600 every month, almost $21,000 over 3 years. I click cancel, and the system asks if I'm sure. I am. I'm so sure the air in the room feels fresher. Then I call the bank, my voice calm and businesslike. I want to drop my cosigner status on a car loan in Ashley Lutz's name. They explain the process, the employee's voice detached and sympathetic at the same time. Refinance in her name or repossession. And if she can't refinance, I ask, already knowing the answer, then the car will be repossessed. Perfect. I send Ashley one last letter, cold and legalistic. You have 30 days to refinance the car and find a new cosigner for the apartment. Otherwise, I'll initiate the process. Mind your business or lose it. That night, I sleep a deep, dreamless sleep, sinking into it like black water and awakening refreshed for the first time in months. The next day, my roommate knocks on my door, his face pale with embarrassment. Your family. They called the landline 10 times. Tell them I moved yesterday. But you're moving in 3 weeks, he mutters. They don't need that information, I reply, and he seems to understand more than I've said. At 4 p.m., someone is pounding on my door as if it owes him money. Furious, uncontrollable pounding that makes the frame shake. I don't move from where I'm sitting on the floor among the boxes, just staring at that shaking wooden barrier. I know you're there. Ashley's voice in the hallway is shaky, cracked with rage and, perhaps, tears. She's screaming, knocking, demanding, threatening. 20 minutes into this nightmare, I hear the door across the hall open and the firm, elderly voice of our neighbor, Mrs. Chin, from apartment 3B, rings out. Miss, stop this immediately. I'll call the police. Ashley shouts something back, something about family and betrayal, but Mrs. Chin is unmoved. And then, retreating, Ashley shouts a final promise through my door, cutting through the wood and the distance. You'll regret this. I won't regret it. Not one bit. But curiosity is a muscle that sometimes trumps prudence. That night, I turn on my phone again. It chokes, spitting out 63 notifications. A symphony of manipulation, from tearful pleas to frantic anger, from panicked bargaining to icy threats. All the stages of grief, but no one died. I just lost access to my wallet. Amid this sea, one letter from my father stands out. Subject: disappointed. Short and merciless. We raised you better. Family takes care of family. If you leave for Seattle without helping, don't worry about keeping in touch. We won't have a daughter who throws away her blood so easily. I laugh. The sound is harsh, joyless, escaping from my throat involuntarily. When I needed help for college, it wasn't there. When Ashley needed a car, I was already standing with a pen, ready to sign the surety bond. They'd been depending on me since my first real paycheck. And now, I'm the villain for stopping. The next morning, I call the management company. I begin the process of removing my cosigner from the apartment. The representative, a soft-spoken woman, explains that they will review Ashley's income and credit history. If she doesn't meet the requirements, she will need a new cosigner or a new place. Start both processes, I say, my voice strange but firm. She gently warns, this will have a significant impact on the primary tenant. I'm aware, I reply. That's the goal. By midnight, the number 41 lights up on my phone. 41 missed calls. I place it face down on the floor next to the office box and go to bed right there on the carpet, drifting off to the quiet symphony of a storm raging somewhere beyond my small, fortified island. The morning arrives clear, cool, unclouded by calls. Light glides over stacks of boxes, labeled with a meticulous precision my life has never received from anyone but myself. Kitchen, office, donation, keep. The apartment is silent, like that moment before pushing off from shore when the oars are already in place and the current is about to catch the boat. When the plane sits motionless at the end of the runway, and you can almost imagine the other end of the road, another city, hills shrouded in rain, and streets where you're known only by your job and the way you order coffee. Somewhere out there is a person I haven't met yet who won't need saving, or a guarantor, or my wounded story. The day will come when my phone rings, and it won't be a family alarm, but a simple dinner invitation or a colleague's question. But first, I have to go. Just go, without looking back. By noon, I've canceled all the auto payments tied to them, like umbilical cords. The shared phone plan is broken. The streaming subscriptions Ashley was always nagging me for have had their passwords changed. A quiet, almost frightening peace descends, like after a long, debilitating illness, when you finally realize the pain is gone and you have to relearn how to live without the background noise of suffering. But the silence doesn't last long. At 2 p.m., my phone explodes with a new wave. 47 missed calls, 20 texts, 6 voicemails, each representing a new stage of the emotional war. Mom, I raised you better. Dad, we're not turning our backs on our family. Ashley, are you seriously going to let me lose my apartment? I scroll through them, not reading them all the way through, just skimming the familiar patterns. Guilt, anger, blackmail, silence, and then around again. At 4 p.m., there's another knock on the door. It's not just insistent this time, but furious, so loud that the glass in the sideboard vibrates. My neighbor peers out of his room, his eyes filled with anxiety. Gloria, don't open. It's Ashley, I finish for him. Her voice behind the door is hoarse. I know you're in there. We need to talk. No, you need to study, I whisper under my breath into the empty room. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Chin comes out into the hallway. Her voice, usually quiet, now cuts the air like a blade. Miss, stop that noise immediately or I'll call the police. I don't care if this is between you and your parents. Calm down or leave. Silence falls. Then the quick staccato steps of Ashley's heels on the concrete floor and a final shout thrown over her shoulder, echoing throughout the entire floor. You'll regret this, Gloria. You'll really regret it. That evening, I call the pawn shop again. I clarify the terms. 30 days from the date of sending the official notice of the need to refinance. If the borrower doesn't meet the criteria, foreclosure will begin automatically. Send the notice, I say, and hang up. Click. Another anchor severed. Before bed, I check my email. A new letter from my father, the shortest and most terrifying in its cold madness. You think you're teaching your sister a lesson, but in reality, you're burning bridges you'll never repair. Remember that. I stare at the screen for a long moment. Part of me knows he's half right, but he doesn't understand the main thing. Some bridges need to be burned to the ground, precisely so that no one will ever cross them again, carrying the weight you finally dumped in the water. They want me to carry them, but I'm just tired, and I won't anymore. A week passes. My apartment empties with each passing day. Boxes are driven away by movers or dropped off at the door, and I begin to feel lighter, almost dizzy, as if I'm shedding invisible layers of lead I've been carrying for years. But my family doesn't give up so easily. They're breathing down my neck, even from a distance. At 9 a.m. on Sunday, as I was brewing the last tea bag in the nearly empty kitchen, a notification lit up my phone. The subject line, last chance. The text was laconic, like an ultimatum. We'll come tomorrow at 9 a.m. to convince you. If you're not home, you're no longer our daughter. Ashley needs this money. You have them, end of discussion. I read it twice, and a strange calm, a deep, quiet water washed over me. Then I looked at my watch. It was 11 p.m. The truck was already booked for dawn. If they were planning to arrive at 9, they'd find only an empty, deserted apartment smelling of dust and freedom. I taped the last box, the one with the books, closed, and the sound of the tape was louder than any scream. At the top, I wrote "Fragile" in marker. Maybe I was labeling myself, but it was a label I chose for myself. Monday, 5 a.m. I woke before the alarm, and my heartbeat was as steady as the wheels of a train already picking up speed. My neighbor, sleepy and silent, was helping me load the last boxes into the rental van. The city was still asleep, gray and soft around the edges, unaware that I was slipping from its clutches. "When are you leaving?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "Right now," I replied. "Now they know. Soon they'll know everything." At 6 in the morning, I handed him the keys and looked around for the last time at the empty rooms, echoing only with memories of endless arguments and guilt. "Thank you for everything," I told him. "Good luck, Gloria," he replied quietly. "You deserve better than what you had." I smiled, and it was a genuine smile, a little sad and immensely relieved. "Yes, I do." The drive out of town felt surreal, like a long exhale after years of holding it. Miles of highway sped by beneath me, the sky slowly changing from inky to glaucous and then to pale gold. At 6:47 a.m., my phone, resting on the passenger seat, began vibrating, bouncing on the plastic. Mom, Dad, Ashley, over and over. I didn't answer. I just stared at the road, soaking up the silence. At 9:15, a text came from a neighbor. "Your family has arrived. I told them you left early this morning. Your mom started crying. Your dad was screaming. They're still arguing outside the door." I replied, "Thanks for covering my back." "You're welcome. Good luck in Seattle." By noon, I pulled into a deserted parking lot somewhere in Pennsylvania. My phone showed 47 missed calls. I took a screenshot, not out of gloating, but as documentary evidence, as a piece of evidence in my own case. Proof that my departure wasn't cowardice, it was survival, pure and simple. Then I turned off the phone. The click of silence was palpable. The next 2 days flew by in a hypnotic rhythm of coffee, road markings, cheap motels, and that silence that first crushes and then begins to heal something broken deep inside. When the Seattle skyline finally appeared in the distance, wet, gray, shimmering with 1,000 lights, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness, not jubilation, but peace. Quiet and solid. I unloaded my boxes into a small, furnished apartment, custom furnished by a corporate company, faceless but clean. It smelled of fresh paint and unimaginable possibilities. That first night, I didn't unpack anything. I simply stood by the huge window, watching the city lights reflect off the dark waters of the bay. No text messages, no humming guilt, no family debt hanging over my soul like a heavy slab. Just me. For the first time in my life, it felt like this, the silence, the space, myself, was enough. The rain in Seattle, those thin silver threads, was almost constant. After 3 weeks, I began to enjoy not so much the falling drops as the sound of them, lulling, cocooning, and what it meant, distance, freedom, disguised as a drizzle. Work felt different here, purer, clearer. My new office overlooked the harbor, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to constantly apologize for existing, breathing, taking up space. My manager introduced me to the team as our new senior developer who delivers on her promises. That phrase, keeps promises, stung somewhere beneath my ribs, because all those years, every promise I made to my family was accompanied by an invisible asterisk, valid until you need it more. 2 months passed. I filled my weekends with strolls through the bustling Pike Place market, coffee dates with colleagues who hadn't yet become friends, and quiet dinners alone that no longer felt like a punishment. I bought my first umbrella, a sturdy, dark blue one that I wasn't supposed to share with anyone. And then, one Saturday morning, while I was waiting for my latte in a small coffee shop by the water, a stranger leaned on the counter next to me. "You look like the kind of person who never forgets their to-do list," he said. I turned around. He was tall, neatly dressed, with dark, overly attentive eyes. He smiled, not intrusively, but with a hint of curiosity. "Maybe so," I replied. "Is it a crime?" "Not in Seattle," he countered, "but it would be a tragedy if there was no room left for anything fun on that list." I laughed despite myself. "Are you a detective or a professional debater?" "Neither, just observant. My name is Daniel Hart. Gloria." He nodded, and crinkles gathered at the corners of his eyes. "Nice to meet you, Gloria," who needs to add a little fun to her list. We started talking. 5 minutes stretched into 40. He worked in the marketing department of the same business center, but on a different floor. He told me he'd moved here a year ago after a 5-year relationship. "She needed a partner she could fix," he said, shrugging. "Turns out I was her project, not her person." There was something in that phrase that echoed within me, a quiet mirror. As we said goodbye, he said, "If you ever need a guide who knows which coffee shops don't rip off tourists," and handed me a napkin with his number scrawled on it. "I'll keep that in mind," I replied. Weeks passed. We started texting. Lunch turned to dinner. Dinner turned to laughter that wasn't ostentatious or businesslike. Daniel didn't ask me to fix him, finance him, or save him. He simply listened. One evening, sitting on the embankment, he asked, "Are you always so defensive?" I raised an eyebrow. "A defensive wall?" "Yes, you listen more than you speak, as if you expect someone to weaponize your words." I laughed softly. "You're not mistaken." "An old relationship?" he suggested. "An old family," I corrected. He nodded slowly, not insisting, simply accepting it as a fact. That evening, before bed, I checked my email. And there it was, a letter from an address I hadn't seen in 3 months. Subject, "Please." My stomach twisted into a cold knot. I opened it. "Gloria, your sister is losing everything. Her car was taken, the apartment is next. You think you're teaching her a lesson, but you're destroying this family. We've always supported you, and now, when we need your help, you disappear. For someone like you, $15,000 isn't money. Don't be stubborn, Mom." I stared at the lines, reading the subtext, clear as day. Having a heart meant giving them my wallet. We supported you meant they were taking credit for my independence. I closed the laptop. I won't answer. But guilt is a ghost that appears at the most inopportune times. It haunted my dreams, whispering the same lies I grew up with. Family comes first, even if it costs you yourself. The next day at work, my boss came up to me. "Gloria, do you have a minute? A follow-up question. What are your thoughts on leadership?" I blinked. "Leadership?" She smiled. "The company is expanding its team here in Seattle. We need someone to oversee the entire infrastructure department. This is a big step. Budgetary responsibility, a team of 8, a corresponding promotion, starting next month. You've earned it." For the first time in weeks, I felt a wide, genuinely happy smile spread across my face, coming from deep within. "I agree." She nodded, satisfied. "We're making it official." That evening, Daniel and I celebrated my promotion, settling into a cozy Thai restaurant that smelled of lemongrass and coconut, laughing so loudly and freely that the waiters smiled back. He raised his glass of cold beer. "Beyond boundaries," he declared, his eyes sparkling, which are finally starting to pay dividends. I laughed, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "You say that like you're giving a TED Talk." "Or maybe you should," he replied seriously, setting down his glass. "People talk too little about the price of healthy responsibility, about what it demands of you, first and foremost, of yourself." I stared at him, at that calm, confident face that had already become an island of silence for me. "How did you become so mindful?" He chuckled, but there was a shadow of old pain in it. "Remember that bad ex? She taught me the value of the word no. Her name was Mara." He said the name without malice, as a statement of fact, and everything fell into place. She was his Ashley, his personal, married debt in a skirt, who drained his accounts, tested his patience, and still managed to make him feel guilty for every breath he took away from her. He understood my story because he'd lived his own, not a copy, but a reflection in a distorted mirror. Later that evening, back in my quiet apartment, the only sound, the steady patter of rain on the glass, I finally opened my laptop again. Lost among the emails from colleagues and the promotional mailings was a new one from my father. Subject, the Manto woman. My heart sank. I opened it, bracing myself for another attack. But the text was different. Dry, tired, almost white with surrender. Gloria, I won't blame you. I just want to talk honestly. You're right in some ways. We've spoiled Ashley. We've relied on you too much. But you're also wrong. We're not your enemies. We're your parents. Ashley is falling apart, and watching her struggle isn't teaching her anything. It's breaking her. I'm not asking for money, just advice. Help us. Help her. I read it twice, 3 times, absorbing every word. It was the first message in years that didn't sound like an ultimatum or manipulation. It was a tired, bitter honesty. And that's what finished me off. Not a scream, but a whispered confession. I started writing a reply, erased it, started again. Finally, I settled on something short but honest. Dad, I appreciate your honesty. And you're right, you're not my enemy. But you are responsible for the Ashley you created. I can't fix it, and I won't pay for it. If she needs advice, let her write to me. No money, no signatures, just guidance. If she's serious, I'll help her create a plan. But she'll have to do all the work. I'm no longer the family's shield. I'm your daughter, not your salvation. I hovered over send, closed my eyes, and pressed. As the soft whistle of the sent email faded, I found myself shaking, not from fear, but from some incredible, aching release. Daniel wrote almost immediately, "Are you okay?" "Yes," I replied, my fingers tapping out the truth. "I just sent my parents the most honest thing I've ever done." "How does it feel?" "Like I took my first truly deep breath, on my own, for myself." I put the phone down and went to the window. It was raining again. Endless, gentle, cleansing. The city below hummed with its indifferent, powerful life, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's emergency room, someone's crisis center. I was simply Gloria, and that was enough. 3 days passed. The email arrived at 9:47 p.m. on Thursday. The subject was so simple, it took my breath away. Just one word. Sorry. From Ashley. I stared at that line for a long time, the cursor hovering over the unread message as if it were booby-trapped. I waited for an explosion, a new wave of manipulation, but I clicked. "Gloria, I don't even know where to begin. I treated you terribly. I made stupid choices and expected you to fix them. It wasn't fair. Dad showed me your letter. You said if I needed advice, I could ask. So I'm asking. I'm not asking for money. Just help me figure out what to do. I lost my car, my apartment, my job. I'm living in my mom and dad's spare room. I'm getting rejected from every application because my credit is ruined. I've applied to 50 jobs. No one's calling. Every time I try to make a plan, I panic. If you could just talk to me once, I'd be eternally grateful. Ashley." I didn't move for a long time, because beneath all the chaos, beneath the panic and despair, I saw something new. Not manipulation, not an act, just naked, helpless defeat. I hadn't asked anyone for permission. There was no one else to ask. I texted Daniel. "Can I show you something?" We met at my place, and I handed him the phone. He read it silently, twice, his face focused. "Looks like she's hit rock bottom," he finally said carefully. "Or she's learned a new playbook designed to make you give in." He looked at me. "What do you think it is?" I sighed. "Perhaps both. Rock bottom often teaches the most compelling playbooks." He leaned back in his chair. "You can always set rules, just advice. No money. You already did that once." I nodded slowly. "Boundaries, conditions, like training wheels." "Exactly. You don't have to trust her." "Just give me a chance to earn that trust." That evening, I typed Ashley's name into the message bar. "Let's talk. Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Video call. No parents in the room. No blaming, no begging. If you need advice, I'll give it. No money, no signatures, no help. Do the work yourself. I'll guide you. Seriously, be on time. Gloria. She responded within an hour. I'll be there. Thanks. Sunday arrived, gray, shrouded in a thick blanket of rain. At precisely 2, an incoming call popped up on my laptop screen. I accepted it. Ashley appeared, thinner, pale, her hair pulled back into a loose ponytail. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from lack of sleep and stress. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, I replied. For a few seconds, we simply stared at each other through pixels and thousands of miles. The silence was thick, filled with the ghosts of everything said and unsaid. Then I took a deep breath. Okay, where are you now? Financially, practically, emotionally? She exhaled, her shoulders sagging. Broke, jobless, and panicked. That's a good start, I said, my voice taking on a surprising firmness, because panic is fuel if you stop letting it paralyze you. We talked for an hour and a half. I talked about selling things online, about finding any kind of retail job, no matter how simple, about calling credit card companies to negotiate a restructuring, about renting a room instead of an apartment, about a bus pass. She listened, took notes in her notebook, nodded. And as we talked, I saw something break in her. Not her spirit, but the old arrogance, replaced by a fragile but genuine humility. It will take years, she whispered at the end, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can do it. You can. You don't have a choice now, making it easy. Her lips trembled. Why are you helping me? After everything? Because you asked for advice, not money, I said quietly, and because I don't want to watch you fail. But I won't do the work for you. Ashley nodded slowly. I understand. Okay. We call once a month. Show me your progress. I'll help as long as you're serious. She sniffled. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just do it. When the call ended, I sat for a long time, staring at my reflection in the black screen. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel any devastating pity either. Just tired, but tired after hard, necessary work. Daniel wrote, How did it go? Better than I feared, worse than I hoped, but it went. That's progress, he replied, and progress always looks ugly at first. And he was right. Over the following months, a new, strange rhythm settled in. Our video calls felt less and less like confessions and more like work meetings. Ashley got a job as a salesperson at a mall, sold half her wardrobe, paid off her first small debt of $3,000, and moved into a room with 2 friends. She sent me screenshots of her budget spreadsheets, like a child with her first scribbles. With each passing month, her voice became less panicked and more weary with determination. One evening, as Daniel read on the couch and I watched the rain outside, he put the book down. Did you ever think you could forgive them? Who, my parents? Yes. I was silent for a long time, watching the raindrops on the glass. It's not about forgiveness, Dan. It's about trust. Forgiveness is possible, but forgiveness doesn't require you to reopen a bank account for them, or your soul. He nodded slowly. And yet, you're doing something incredible. You're proving that boundaries aren't walls of hatred. They can be the foundation for something new, even if it's just neutrality. I smiled, turning to him. You sound like you've rehearsed this speech. I just lived through it, he said simply. With Mara, I realized that you and we both suffered from the same disease, the disease of pleasing. I had a partner who drained me. You have a family. He paused. And now we're learning what it means to love without losing ourselves, even if this love is at a distance and with very clear rules. 6 months into our strange, carefully orchestrated video calls with Ashley, she surprises me. Not with another success, but with a confession that hangs heavy in the silence between us. I need to tell you something, she begins, looking off camera. Mom and Dad aren't okay. I frown, instinctively preparing for defense. Define not okay. She exhales. They spent most of their savings trying to help me before you stopped paying them. Now they're behind on the mortgage, on the bills. I'm not asking you to help them. I just thought you should know. I freeze. The air in my cozy Seattle apartment suddenly becomes thick and uncomfortable. Why should I tell you, I ask, my voice calmer than I feel. Because they won't, Ashley says quietly. They're too proud. But that's bad, Glow, and you deserve to know the whole picture. The whole truth. I nod slowly, letting her words sink in, weighing their weight. Did they ask you to ask me? No, they don't even know I'm telling you this. Okay, I whisper. Thank you for being honest. We end the conversation, but the weight of this knowledge lingers, following me like a shadow. That evening, I tell Daniel. We're sitting on my couch, our silhouette reflected in the window, an island of peace in the dark glass. They're fighting, I say quietly, and the admission carries the bitterness of an old guilt I thought had died. Financially, because of me, because I'm no longer their wallet. He listens without interrupting, placing the glass of water on the table, and I feel it, that old, jagged instinct. Part of me wants to rush to help, to shut up, to buy myself some peace. Another part, stronger and more resolute, remembers every word, every threat, the coldness in my father's voice. We will never have a daughter who throws away her own blood so easily. Daniel leans forward, his elbows on his knees. Helping and saving are not the same thing, Gloria. You know that better than anyone. Maybe you can do for them what you did for Ashley. A tip, not a check. A card, not an ambulance. I sigh, and the sigh comes from the very depths of my lungs. Maybe, I say. And I realize that this maybe is not from weakness, but from strength. For the first time, I don't respond to the impulse of fear and duty. I choose. And that changes everything. A week after Ashley's confession, I do something I haven't done in almost a year. I unlock my father's email. It starts buzzing within minutes, as if it's been waiting for this moment, spitting out a month's worth of notifications. I ignore them all and type slowly, carefully checking every word. Dad, Ashley told me you and Mom are having financial difficulties. I'm not offering money, but I can offer advice, on the same terms as her. One video call, no guilt trips, no emotional manipulation, just honesty and solutions. Let me know if you're interested. Gloria. He answers faster than I expected. Briefly and without preamble, I'll pick up, thank you. We scheduled a call for Sunday evening. When his face appears on the screen, he looks older, not just aged, but faded, like a photograph left out in the sun for too long. Mom sits next to me, her arms crossed over her chest, her posture a ready defense even before she says a word. I appreciate that you both take this seriously, I begin, my voice a distant, calm voice. But if you want this to work, you need to tell me everything, without embellishment. Dad exhales. Okay, our mortgage is 2 months behind. Several credit cards are maxed out. The car loan is in default. We spent most of our savings trying to help Ashley before you left. Then she lost her apartment, Mom interrupts, her voice still thick with silent reproach. We couldn't just leave her on the street, Gloria. I'm not judging it, I say calmly, but you can't solve someone else's problems by creating your own. Dad nods weakly. We know. We just thought it was temporary. Debt is rarely temporary, I reply, and it sounds cruel, but it's true. And I explain everything to them. How to sell the second car. How to try to refinance the mortgage before the bank starts the process. Cancel all subscriptions, all streaming services, all unnecessary expenses. No restaurants, no gifts, not even to Ashley. No loans to anyone. Mom's face hardens. You say that so easily, like throwing away our entire life. It's not easy, I say quietly. It's survival. You can't pretend everything is fine while the house is burning. She turns away from the camera, and for the first time in years, I hear no objections, only quiet, heavy breathing. Dad clears his throat. You'll check on us, like you do with Ashley? I hesitate. Once a month. 6 months. After that, you're on your own. Same rules. No money, no guilt. Only progress. He nods, and there's not defeat in his eyes, but a strange, weary relief. Deal. When the call ends, I lean back in my chair and stare at my reflection in the dark screen. Somewhere along the line, I finally became the adult in a family of eternal children. Not their parent, no, but the one who finally stopped playing by their broken rules. A month later, during one of our check-ins, Dad admits they've sold their second car and started cooking at home. Mom, looking at the table, adds, "We canceled Netflix. I miss watching TV, but we're managing." This is progress. Tiny, fragile, but real. Ashley joins one of the calls. She smiles, not the forced social smile, but the smile of someone who's tired but still holding on. "Guess who just made their 5th payment on their plan," she says. Dad frowns, pretending to think. "I don't know, who?" "Me," Ashley laughs, and there's pride in that laugh. Mom shakes her head, but the corners of her lips twitch. "Who would have thought," she mutters. "Guess who's proud of her?" I ask after a moment's pause. The screen fills with silence for a second, and then with something that almost resembles a family. Not perfect, not healed, but human. And that made all the difference. Meanwhile, my life in Seattle was quietly but surely blossoming. Work hummed like a well-oiled machine, and the new team, my team, worked together with a vengeance. And Daniel became the anchor of calm I didn't even know existed. One Friday evening, as we were chopping vegetables for a stew together, he said, without looking at me, "So something happened at work today." I glanced at him. "Good or bad?" "Good. I think they're opening a new branch on the East Coast, in New York. I've been offered the creative director position." My heart sank for a second. "Dan, this is incredible. Congratulations." He nodded, still focused on chopping carrots. "It is, but that means moving." "Oh," was all I could manage, feeling the floor shift from under my feet. He finally looked at me, and in his eyes I saw not triumph, but the same uncertainty I felt in mine. "Before you panic, I haven't agreed yet. You've built something amazing here, Gloria. I would never ask you to give it up." "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. He smiled faintly. "For the first time in my life, I don't want to make this decision alone. I want to make choices with someone." His words hung in the air between us, soft, yet incredibly heavy in their meaning, the complete opposite of everything I'd grown up with. And the following weekend, an email arrived from my manager. Subject, expansion opportunity. They were also opening an office on the East Coast. They needed an experienced executive, a VP position, relocation, a 6-figure bonus, everything I could have ever dreamed of. When I told Daniel about this, he chuckled softly. So, essentially, we were both offered the same deal in the same city. "It seems the world has a sense of humor," I said. We discussed it for hours. Money, career advancement, family here, a future there. Everything was weighed, reconsidered again. Finally, he asked, "What's your intuition telling you? Not duty, not fear, intuition." I closed my eyes and listened to that quiet place inside, drowned out by other people's voices for so long. She says I'm finally happy, truly happy, and that I don't want to trade this peace, this wholeness, for another step, even a golden one. He chuckled. "Then no, it's simple." "Easy for you to say." "I resigned my position this morning," he suddenly admitted, looking straight at me. "Seattle, it's become my home because of you." I blinked, disbelieving. "What are you saying?" He shrugged, and the gesture held all his unassuming, quiet determination. "You once told me that true boundaries are disguised love for oneself and for others. Well, this is my boundary and my choice. I choose here. I choose this." Something changed in me in that moment. The last layer of armor I'd never even known existed melted away, leaving only a lightness and a strange, aching tenderness. A few weeks later, during another Sunday call, my dad said, "We refinanced the mortgage, sold the car. We're slowly getting by." After a pause, my mom quietly added, "It's hard, but we're coping. And I'm sorry, Gloria, for everything." It was awkward, sincere, and rude, like a scarred wound. Such apologies are rare. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you," was all I could manage. Ashley smiled through the screen. "It seems we're all learning from the same strict teacher." "Don't overestimate me," I said. "You did the work." "And yet," she added, "you gave us a map." That evening, Daniel and I walked through the drizzling Seattle rain toward the waterfront. The streetlights reflected off the black asphalt, turning the street into a scattering of shimmering stars. "I can't believe how far they've come," I admitted, feeling the long-held tension finally leave my shoulders. "People don't grow when someone constantly drags them along," Daniel said softly. "They grow when they start walking on their own, even if it means stumbling." I looked at him, at that calm, beloved face in the damp gloom. "You know, if I had met you 5 years ago, I probably would have tried to fix you or shoulder your problems." He smiled, and his smile held all the wisdom of a man who had also walked his own path to self-discovery. "And I would have let you. I'm glad we met now." He took my hand as we crossed the street. His palm was warm and confident, and this time, in the endless rain, I wasn't the caretaker, the provider, or the one responsible for someone else's happiness. I was simply Gloria, and for the first time in my life, that wasn't just enough. It was everything.